The story begins with a couple who are passionately involved in romance in their room when suddenly their son walks in, showing them a dead mouse in his hand. Seeing this, the father quickly takes him away, while the mother is left in shock. In the next scene, we see Laura on a boat with her husband Greg and their son. Laura is trying to talk to Greg about work, but he isn't paying attention to her. When he receives a call, he steps away. At that moment, a man named Elliot approaches Laura and starts helping her with her tasks. Knowing that Laura is married, he begins to flirt with her, and she doesn't say anything in response. Just then, Laura's son Jamie falls into the water, and to impress Laura, Elliot quickly jumps in to save him. Greg thanks Elliot for his help, and Laura invites him to join them for lunch. While they are having lunch, Laura's friend Mira starts to admire Elliot and begins to compliment him. Later, when Elliot, Greg, and Laura are in the kitchen, Elliot praises Laura's painting. Laura explains that she loves painting but that Greg has recently converted her art studio into his office. Meanwhile, Greg is on a call, flirting with his secretary, which Elliot finds a bit strange. When they all sit down for lunch, Elliot suggests some renovation ideas for their house, which both Laura and Greg seem to like. Next day, when Laura is jogging with Mira, she continues to talk about Elliot. When Laura returns home, she sees Elliot in their backyard without a shirt. As she approaches him, Elliot starts showing her the plans for their house, but Laura's attention is focused on his body. As Laura starts to leave, Elliot also checks her out. Later, when Laura is taking a shower, Elliot sneaks in to watch her. The two then go shopping together, where Elliot flirts heavily with Laura, and she responds positively to his advances. A little later, when Mira visits Laura's home, she sees Elliot without a shirt again. And seeing this, she starts praising him again and asks about his girlfriend, but Elliot says he doesn't have one. Later, when Laura goes to Greg's boat with Elliot, she finds a girl's underwear there. This sight confirms her suspicions that Greg is cheating on her. Seizing the opportunity, Elliot tells Laura that she should leave Greg. After Laura leaves, we see Elliot crying with a picture of his mother. That night, when Laura asks Greg where he was the previous day, he tells her that he was working with his secretary. Hearing this, Laura becomes even angrier. When Greg tries to get intimate with her, Laura declines and says she's tired. The next day, we see that Elliot has started the renovation work on their house. When Laura approaches him, she notices Jamie is happy with Elliot, which makes her feel good. After Laura steps away, Elliot comes over and starts undressing in front of her, getting intimate with her while they shower together, in which Laura was also having a lot of fun. The next day, as Laura was heading towards her boat, she noticed a couple nearby who were romantically involved. Seeing them, Greg comments that kids today can start anywhere. This makes Laura's doubts vanish, and she realizes that the underwear must belong to this couple. She acknowledges her mistake and hugs Greg affectionately. After this, Laura approaches Elliot and tells him that what happened yesterday was a mistake and that they need to end their relationship. However, Elliot starts to charm her with his words and gets closer to her. Laura, caught up in his words, ends up being intimate with him again. Later that night, we see Elliot looking at a picture of Laura and Greg, where he replaces Greg's face with his own. The next day is Laura's birthday, so Elliot brings her favorite flowers. Greg is surprised and wonders how Elliot knows her preferences. When Greg goes to the office, Laura confronts Elliot and angrily tells him that he shouldn't have done that. And here she ends their relationship, firing Elliot from his job as well. Shortly after, when Laura returns home with Jamie, she notices that Elliot has left, but we see him hiding and watching her. Later, as Laura gets ready to go to a party with Mira, Greg and his friends surprise her as she steps outside, which makes her very happy. At this moment, Greg's secretary, Hina, approaches Laura and tells her that Greg has been planning this party for a long time and that she had helped him a lot. Hearing this, Laura breathes a sigh of relief, thinking that Greg was with Hina just for this work. However, Elliot arrives at the party, and when he sees Greg close to Laura, he feels jealous and leaves. Meanwhile, Mira finds Elliot attractive and spends the entire party talking to him, but Elliot doesn't pay attention to anyone. When the party is over and he's about to leave, Hina insists on coming with him. When he ignores her, Elliot reluctantly takes her with him on his boat. On the other hand, we see Laura and Greg, where Laura decides to tell Greg the truth. But Greg doesn't listen to her and starts praising Laura, becoming intimate with her. Meanwhile, Elliot tries to get intimate with Hina, who is already prepared, but she doesn't seem to enjoy it much. As she's leaving, she notices a picture of Laura, and it clicks for her why Elliot hasn't been giving her much attention. Just then, Elliot attacks her from behind and kills Hina. The next day, While Greg is romancing Laura before heading to the office, Elliot watches them together, feeling jealous and increasingly obsessed with Laura. After Greg leaves for work, Laura goes to put the hose away and notices that someone has turned her old studio back into a workspace, which makes her very happy. However, the happiness is short-lived as she starts to see both her and Elliot's names everywhere in the room. Just then, she hears Jamie screaming and rushes to him, finding him on the ground. He tells her that Elliot was there, prompting Laura to head outside quickly, where Elliot confronts her, threatening Laura and demanding she leave Greg. When Laura refuses, he attempts to force himself on her, but Jamie arrives just in time, causing Elliot to back off for the moment. That night, Laura researches Elliot and discovers that he had previously ruined another woman's life. The next day, she visits that woman, who reveals that Elliot destroyed her marriage and what he did to her mother is truly shocking. Meanwhile, as a girl walks by, her necklace falls into the water. When she goes to retrieve it, she sees Hina's body submerged. This discovery leads to the police being called, and the news quickly spreads across all channels. Back at home, while Greg is on the phone, Elliot sneaks up behind him, knocking him out and kidnapping him. When Greg regains consciousness, he finds himself tied up on Elliot's boat. As he tries to escape, Elliot arrives, and during their struggle, Greg gets knocked out again. Meanwhile, Laura reveals the truth about Elliot to Mira, explaining that he has kidnapped Greg. She then visits Elliot's favorite bakery, where she speaks to an elderly woman who shares details about Elliot's troubled childhood. She learns that Elliot was raised by his mother, who never had a faithful husband, leading to his current unstable behavior. One day, his madness escalated to the point where he set their home on fire, resulting in his mother's death. The elderly woman mentions that this morning, Elliot told her he plans to marry a widow soon, which deeply worries Laura. She fears Elliot might kill Greg. When Laura returns home, she finds Elliot waiting for her. He drags her into a room, and in a desperate attempt to save herself, she falsely confesses her love, declaring, "I'm yours." They then go downstairs, where Laura sees Jamie tied to the dinner table. She instructs him to obey everything Elliot says. After dinner, as Elliot tries to get intimate with Laura, Jamie unexpectedly walks in, triggering painful memories from Elliot's childhood, which leaves him feeling emotionally conflicted. Taking advantage of the moment, Laura attacks Elliot and tries to escape with Jamie. However, Elliot catches up from behind, knocks her unconscious, and takes her to his boat. When Laura regains consciousness, she quietly attacks Elliot again and starts looking for help to rescue Greg. Just then, Elliot grabs her once more. In a desperate move, Laura pushes him, causing him to fall and hit his head severely, resulting in his death. In the next scene, we see Laura beginning a new life with her family, signifying a fresh start.